Hello everyone and welcome to episode 7 of our Python beginner to advanced course in which we'll be covering tuples and sets. So let's begin. So we already renamed our notebook to tuples and sets. So let's start by defining what exactly a tuple is. So a tuple is a sequence of immutable Python objects. Now immutable is just another way to say it cannot be changed or modified. So there are a few key differences between a tuple and a list, and they are, well, as said before, tuples cannot be changed after creation. They use parentheses instead of square brackets that lists use, and because they cannot be changed, tuples are way faster than lists in iteration. So if speed is your priority, tuples are your go-to, and they can also be used as dictionary keys while lists cannot. So let's go ahead and create our first tuple. Let's just create an empty tuple to start. So create a comment called empty tuple, and then we just assign empty as just empty parentheses. Now if you want to fill it, let's name it our tuple filled 1 2 3 4 5 6. Now keep in mind tuples do use parentheses and not square brackets. We can also create tuples with mixed data types, same as lists: string, and then a float, and a boolean as well, anything really. And we can actually also create a tuple without parentheses, which is called tuple packing. So we can say pack equals to 10 20 30, and if you want to print this, the type of this, we would get an output of tuple even though we don't use um, parentheses. As you can see, the output is tuple of class tuple. So let's try creating a tuple with just one element. So what this does is it requires a trailing comma. Without it, Python just treats the value as a plain expression. So let's start by saying that's something that's not a tuple, just an int in parentheses. So something that's not a tuple is this, just a regular number inside parentheses. But something that is a tuple is this. Sorry, just yeah. Something that is a tuple is 5 comma. So if you want to print type of not 1 and print the type single, we would get this as a class of integer even though it is in parentheses, and this as a tuple. So the key difference between these two is you need to have a trailing comma for single element tuples. Another way we can create a tuple from any iterable, such as a list, string, or range, or etc., is by using the tuple function. So how do we do that? So let's create a list so we can use a tuple. So let's just say list from underscore list. We write the function tuple, and then in parentheses we write a list. So a list requires square brackets, so we write 1 2 3 as our example list, and let's print this. So let's see what our output is, and it prints a tuple because you can see it's in parentheses. So you can use the tuple function as well to create a tuple. We can also use it for a string. So let's just write string in comments from str. We can say tuple, and then in parentheses we write our string hello, and let's print this. Yep. Print, and as you can see, it separated each and every character within the string into a tuple, as again indicated by the parentheses. And we can also create it from a range. let's name it from range, and we create our range inside the tuple. Our range is basically the for loop, even though we haven't covered that. What range is if you write range 5, it'll print elements from 0 until the number inside the bracket -1. So it'll print 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's what range is. We'll look more into ranges when we start for loops. And let's just print this. And yeah, it prints 0 until 4 within parentheses, again showing that it's a tuple. So now let's move on to accessing tuple elements through the method of indexing. So tuple elements are accessed using square brackets and a 0 based index. Same as list, the first element is at the index 0. So let's create a tuple called fruits, and anything we can add. Apple, banana, orange, mango, cherry. Let's just keep it like this for the time being. And let's print the first element with index 0, which is apple. So that is fruits, and then in square brackets we type our index. So keep in mind, even though tuples uses parentheses, the indexing is always square brackets. So that's just a small thing to keep in mind. Now if you want to access our second element, it's by index 1, banana. So we already did this when we did list, so but this is just a small recap. If you may recall, -1 access the last element, and -2 is the second last element. So this is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. This is -1, -2, -3, -1, -5. And now let's move on to slicing. We also covered this in lists, but we'll quickly go through it as a part of tuples. So you can extract a portion of a tuple using the slice syntax. So let's go through that. Let's create a new tuple as nums, or just num. 0, 1, 2, 43, 56, 67, 89, anything really. So let's print nums, and then once again we use square brackets, and let's say if you write this 2 to 5. So what this does is it prints the third element with index 2 all the way until the fourth index, which is 56. So it's until this number -1. So that's just a thing to keep in mind. We did also cover that when we did lists. And if you were to write again nums and in square brackets :4, sorry, this is num. What this does is it prints until the third index element, so this -1. We can also do, for example, 2 and then add the colon after. So what this does is it starts from the second index value until the end of the tuple. We can also do 2 colons and then 2. So what this does is it skips through values. So 0 skips 1, 2 skips 43, 56 skips 67, and then 89. So it's every second element. And one last one we can do is : -1. So what this does is it just simply reverses the string. So yeah, that's a few operations to keep in mind. And now let's move on to something called tuple unpacking. So we can assign individual tuple values to variables in a single line. This is called unpacking. So let's start by defining a tuple such as point. Let's call it 10, 20, 30, and let's say our x, y, and z values are these respective values, and let's print them. Now let's swap two variables using tuple packing or unpacking. So let's say a is equal to 5, b equal to 10. So how do we swap them? So we simply write a comma b is equal to b comma a. So some of you may know something called bubble sort, which is a much more complex sorting algorithm where it goes through a list or a tuple or any sequence really and compares the elements in ascending order. So it compares the element with index 0 to element with index 1, check which is greater, and then moves on until the entire list is ordered. But this is simply a simpler way to do it. All we have to do is write a comma b and swap the variable b to the position of a and the variable a to the position of b by one line. So this is a much more efficient and faster method. So if you want to type print a comma b, you would get an output of 10 comma 5. These above values are just these print statements. So if so yeah, as you can see, our first initial a value was 5, but now we're getting an a value of 10. So we swapped the a and b values from this line. If you were to delete this line, we would get 5 comma 10. So that just shows how efficient and fast of a method tuple swapping variables using tuple packing is. So let's do something called extended packing with the star symbol, with the asterisk. And let's just write in bracket star for a bit of clarification. And let's type something called first and then asterisk rest. And let's assign this to a tuple of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, anything. And now if you were to print first and if you were to print the rest, what do you think will be our output? Just take a minute to think about what our output could possibly be. Well, if you thought first would be the first element, you guessed right. But rest, since we added an asterisk sign, the rest would mean the rest of the elements excluding the first. So that's 2, 3, 4, 5. So if you were to print that, as you can see, print first, printed 1, and printed rest would be 2, 3, 4, 5. So this is another efficient way of printing the rest of the elements, excluding the first. It's just another method. You can really use anything, slicing, indexing, any method you prefer. But this is just another alternative of accessing elements in tuples. So yeah, one last operation we can do is let's just write first and then asterisk middle and then last is equal to our tuple 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And now let's print first again. Let's print middle and print last. So let's see what our output would be. So we got print first as 1, our middle value is 2, 3, 4, and our last is 5. So if we have a last value, and we added an asterisk as the middle, it'll take every element except for the first and last. Over here we didn't have a last value, so it just took the rest of the values except for first. So anytime you define a variable here as first or last and add an asterisk variable, it will take every element except for the elements that you assign to the first and last variables. So yeah, that's just a tuple unpacking. Now let's move on to nested tuples. So one last operation within tuples. Tuples can contain other tuples and any other objects, allowing you to represent multi-dimensional data. So what we can do is it's the same concept as 2D lists. Let's say matrix is our tuple name, and let's call it another parentheses 1 2 3 comma parentheses 4 5 6 and then comma 7 8 9. So we've created tuples within tuples. So there are 3 additional tuples within the external matrix tuple. So let's access this. Let's access the number 2. So what do we do first? So the number 2 lies within the tuple which is in the element 0 of the external matrix of the external tuple. So we first write element 0. Now inside the smaller tuple, where does 2 lie? So number 1 is element 0 and number 2 is element 1. So we write element 1. So this will print the element 2. Now let's say we wanted to print any random one, 8. So this is 0, this entire thing is 0, this entire thing is 1, so this entire thing would be 2. So once again we write print matrix square brackets 2, and 8 lies within 0 1, the first element with index 1 within this tuple. So this would print 8. So this is just a simple way to access nested tuples. For an exercise, you can try to access number 9 and let me know what you guys get. So now there are much more advanced tuples which we will get back to once we get into a deeper understanding of Python, but these are all the fundamentals you need for the concept of tuples. So now let's move on to creating some sets. So we use sets for checking or eliminating duplicates or performing membership testing efficiently. So checking if X is in the set is way faster than checking if X is in a list for large collections. So some key features of sets are unordered, they have no fixed position, they can contain no duplicate values, they are mutable, which means you can change them, and set elements must always be immutable. Strings, numbers, tuples are fine, but lists are not. Sets support powerful mathematical operations such as union, intersection, difference, etc. Keep in mind the set is an unordered collection of items, so they have not been sorted yet. And every element is unique. There cannot be any duplicates. So let's start by creating a basic set. So for sets we use curly braces. So type set, and let's create our first set called numbers. In curly brackets we use 1 2 3 4 5 for an example, and let's print it. Very basic stuff. So keep in mind list is square brackets, sets is curly brackets, and tuples is parentheses. So now, as said before, sets cannot have duplicates. So let's take an interesting approach. Let's see what happens if we do write a duplicate within our set. So let's say dupe as our set name and call it and write 1 2 3 4 4 5 5 6 7 6 7. So as you can see, there are varieties of duplicates within this set. So used to writing in tuples, forgot to add the curly brackets. Yeah, so we added the curly brackets, and now let's print it and let's see what happens. And yeah, so the IDE already knows, Python already knows that sets cannot have duplicates, so it automatically removes it for you if your data set does have duplicates. So that's a small thing to keep in mind. So let's use the set constructor. So let's start with um, a list, just like last time. Let's call it from list as set, and then within curly brackets we write our list within square brackets 1 2 3 4 5. So what this does is, let's print it, from underscore list. So what this does is it will remove all duplicates. So let's just add a couple of duplicates here. 4. Let's see what the invalid syntax is. Okay, yeah, so that's another small thing to keep in mind. When you're writing a list within a set, you have to use parentheses. So yeah, that's a small syntax error on my part. And as you can see, even though we use parentheses, the output will be in curly brackets because that's the syntax for a set, and it has removed all the duplicates. So now let's use the same thing for a string. Let's create a string as set operator and then hello. Let's print our string. Keep in mind, hello has 2 L's, which is another duplicate. Yeah, and the elements do appear out of order, but that's fine. It has removed the 1 L, which is its sole purpose. And now we can also access it from a tuple. So let's create a tuple as tuple1 and write the set constructor, 2 parentheses, 1 for the set and 1 for the tuple, 10, 20, 30, 40, anything within our data set, and let's print it. So yeah, let's just quickly add another duplicate. Yeah, and it removed the duplicate. Even though it has mixed up the elements, that's fine, it has removed the duplicate. And so yeah, those are just small introduction into sets and tuples. We look into much more advanced stuff once we cover all the basics of Python, in which we'll be using them in real life applications and projects. So essentially, sets are just used for removing duplicates as a main part, but they are also faster than lists, so they can be used for larger accessing data from large data sets. So yeah, that's it for this video. See you guys in episode 8 of this course.